this coming Monday.
He said he was gonna be late for some.
Look at that cute. Hey, Laura.
All right, good afternoon. It's a special city council workshop, 5 p.m., Monday, February 13th. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that the press and public were duly notified of the meeting in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. Nicole, you want to do roll call?
Councilmember Bogosian.
Here.
Councilmember Hahn.
Here.
Councilmember Myers.
Here.
Councilmember Ward. Councilmember Streetman.
Here.
Councilmember Popson.
Here.
Councilmember Anderson. Here. Councilmember Pierce.
Here.
Mayor Pounds.
Here.
You have a quorum?
Thank you. And I think Councilmember Ward said he would be about 15, 20 minutes late, give or take. First item is citizens' comments.
Elizabeth Campson.
Workshop download.
Elizabeth Campson, 32 Intercoastal Court. I just wanted to say that I appreciate administration putting forward that rentalscape proposal, and I hope that steps are taken to approve the purchase. I know no program is perfect, but the numbers referenced in it seem more in keeping with the activity that we should expect from the number of licenses that we've issued. The 1,600 rentals that they say that we have for our 1,768 licenses seems more accurate than the 1,200 number we have from our current system. This morning I spoke with Jane over at the town of Mount Pleasant regarding the pros and cons of the programs because she's used them both and just how she felt about them. And I learned from her that our current system only considers something a listing if a review is left, which I thought was a little odd, but that she really liked Rentalscape as a much better analysis tool. So I feel like that's really an investment worth making. And I encourage you also to look at some of those optional products that are offered. Our manual license entry process requires hiring temporary employees every year just to get that information uploaded into our accounting system that we use to log all the rental licenses. And so maybe by adding that STR registration and renewal portal, it could be worth the money, and it might actually pay for itself when you don't have to hire the temp workers if we're letting the applicants kind of get all that information in themselves if they're the ones plugging it in. And it looks like it also can be customized in a number of ways. And it looks like enforcement is one thing everybody seems to be able to agree on that we need. And so I would ask that you maybe consider that 24/7 complaint line and online form option. 3 years ago, our council passed an ordinance providing for the revocation of a business license after 5 or more founded complaints are registered. And during that hotel noise violation discussion, I believe that it was stated that we don't really have a great way of tracking or logging those founded complaints. And so that option seems like it might be a good fit for that need and a good way to kind of bridge the gap between code enforcement and livability and planning and licensing. And just finally, I'd also like to ask you to consider that public-facing portal. The public, I think, should have a way to access information regarding rentals on the island that doesn't involve my multitude of email requests to an overloaded administration and planning staff. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep.
That's it.
Is that it? Thank you.
Thank you, Fred.
Item 3, special presentations. I don't think we have any of those tonight. Item 4, dashboard. Desiree, this is in your packet.
Yes, not a whole lot to report. As you know, we track year-to-date numbers and all the categories that are listed here. We do have a couple of vacancies, but we have issued offer letters for 3 of the 5. So we anticipate having those filled. The City Hall Public Relations Coordinator was offered today. We're waiting to hear back on their response. And then same for the Recreation Department. We've issued an offer letter to an external candidate for the role of Assistant Director and also an external candidate for the specialist. So we hope to be fully staffed by the end of this month. Upcoming community events, the Front Beach Fest is going to be our big upcoming event at Front Beach early March, really the beginning of the spring. So we're really excited about that. The staff's been working really hard on getting that event all set. And then we have the community yard sale later next month. The other thing I wanted to point out, just to make sure that we're all talking and looking at the licensing and being consistent with what's has been reported in the short-term rental workshop. Year to date, as of February 10th, the city has issued 1768 rental licenses, short-term rental licenses. The last number that you had seen was as of February 3rd. So this is a more updated number than what you saw last week.
What was that number again?
We have 1,768
Okay.
as of February 10th. Unless there are any questions, I don't have anything else to report on this.
Questions or comments? Thank you, Desiree. Departmental reports, they are all in your packet. And Desiree, I don't think we had anything we wanted to highlight that wasn't already on the dashboard, so we'll just keep rocking. Item 6, strategic plan, policy initiatives and priorities. Item A, livability. Discussion of changing short-term rental compliance, managing software. Douglas or Desiree, y'all want to?
Douglas will take this on.
Yes, this is the, excuse me, the competitor to the brand that we're currently using. We're currently using Granicus software, and we would like to try their competitor, Rentalscape. This is the product that's being used by the town of Mount Pleasant. We have met with the town of Mount Pleasant and with the Rentalscape folks. We do think it's a kind of a more sophisticated platform. So we would like to run both of them together at once for the remainder of this year until May, and then decide which of the two we'd like to proceed with permanently going forward. So this would kind of be a trial period where we did both so we could really compare the two.
Hey, Douglas.
Yeah.
I see the proposals listed kind of the base fee, and then there's these alternatives. Have you thought about any of the alternatives, and any make sense to you?
I would say that before we do any alternatives, we just have the platform and use it at its base level initially. I don't think that we would use it as the standalone administration portal until we knew that we wanted to use it, kind of switch permanently to it. So I would say at this point, we would just do the base agreement, but in May, we would do the renewals. And at that point, I think we may, if we want to transfer completely to it, I think we'd come back to you for that difference in that additional amount. I will say, just to kind of clear the air, we don't think that it's going to identify many more rentals. The Granicus, if you look at their dashboard, it's currently showing 1,580, I think, something in that neighborhood. This one, when we did our demo with them, their number was lower than that, but they thought that they might find up to 1,600. So we think it's going to be about the same numbers-wise, but it's a better, smoother platform, we believe, and we'll just know more once we can really compare them side by side to see which is finding more. But we wouldn't do it thinking that it was going to be kind of a financial windfall. We would just do it for the sophistication, and we think it has better tracking ability for how frequently things are being rented. We think it's stronger in that regard, but we think it's basically finding about the same number of properties.
Douglas, under the pricing proposal there, excuse me, I'm sorry. It mentions that currently Rentalscape's showing close to 3,207 live STR listings. What's
So
what's
that
that
is,
number? What does that entail? Does that include condos, hotel rooms?
well, so what that is, and Granicus has the same thing where they will identify the number of units they've identified.
Right.
Rentalscape is now saying 1,600. Granicus is saying 1,580. But then they're showing, in addition to that number, they're showing listings. So most of those are listed multiple times. So if you take the 1,600, if they're listed twice, that would be 3,200 listings that they're seeing, but it's, a lot of them are duplicate listings.
Okay, I wasn't
That's-
sure what that
Yeah, that's what that is.
number meant.
I think
Thank
by
you.
comparison, though, the Granicus was at 2,500 and the total listings, this one's at, so it's suggesting just by, obviously it's limited data, but suggesting it's going to more places to pick.
We do think it
That
goes
rounds up.
to more places. I think we've satisfied ourselves that it's crawling more sites. We also know that it's crawling the same sites daily, where Granicus is not doing that. So it's doing a lot of tracking bookings that Granicus can't do quite as well. They're showing, they're noticing when a property goes booked and it turns gray on the calendar. They're making note of that. They're making computations on rental fees collected. According to Jane, you can't really, you can't kind of go to the bank with that number, but it's a good indicator of the level of activity that you're seeing. And we're not getting that capability now. So that's that, in addition to the kind of interface, are the primary improvements we expect to see. But
So with respect to enforcement, we can flag ones that look like they're not reporting all of their income and do a separate investigation.
that's correct. We
So that we
think
can
we will
focus on-
get better estimates of rental activity out of this product.
And revenue. So right now, it's an honor system when folks submit an application and list what their gross revenues for the prior year were. I think this capability would give us an idea of, because they track booked nights and the room rate and make assumptions of how much income that property generated. And as Douglas said earlier, you can't really take that to heart, because sometimes an owner will block their calendar for their own use. So, it's not going to be 100% accurate all the time, but it's more information that we have now. And that was one of the things that we talked about in the administration committee, about what can we be doing that we're not currently doing if we add another additional personnel, is maybe looking at and investigating that piece a little bit more proactively.
We need to do that because human nature is, if nobody's looking, you're not going to be as careful. If we did random checks or whatever of the ones that seem to be not quite what we expect, then that's probably going to keep everyone a little more honest, because they'll be more careful in their reporting. So I think that's a great idea.
I will say, though, that our finance director does verify monthly about 80, those that generate about 80% of total revenues, to do that, due diligence, but certainly we're not capturing everybody, and this would help us maybe enhance that.
Oh, okay.
John, did you have a follow-up from your first question?
No, I was just curious, I guess, is this going to come to after we get discussing here, to come to the council meeting on
Yeah.
Next, or following week?
On
Yeah.
28th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does he have anything?
Yeah, I would just add that, we debated as to when to kind of start this process. We think that the best timing is, if we were to do it now, it'll take us about a month to get our data loaded into the Rentalscape program. Then we really only have till the end of April before they all expire, obviously, and we start all over again. So we did think that timing was pretty critical to, we've never had the Granicus, we've never had as much focus on the Granicus listings as we have now. And just for everybody's benefit, we now have that list down to one outstanding unlicensed identified renter. So Jason, Jeannie, and my office have really been pursuing that intently. So we think we have an opportunity to have kind of our best ever comparison right now with what Granicus and Rentalscape are capable of doing. But we need to do it, if we're going to do it, we need to do it kind of now.
Yeah, because you really only have just, a little bit over a month.
Right. Once we get it enacted, we're going to have to kind of scramble to really analyze what the differences of the two systems is.
Okay.
Yes, it's much more robust. I think that the interfacing piece too, it seems more user-friendly. So if we, I guess my goal would be to completely segregate those activities to the same portal. So people would be going there, submitting their application, paying there. And, what we've seen looks like it's going to be very simple too for the user.
Yep. So John, to your question, we'll vote on this and we've got money in the budget, but we'll vote on it as a approve software at the 28th meeting.
Yes, we have $35,000 in the budget for approval such as this. We are going to be paying for two different programs for the months that we're using them. But that current contract expires in May, so we'd be paying double essentially just for a few months, and I think it'll be worth it to try them both at the same time.
Okay, thank you.
You're getting, Scott's nodding his head.
Okay.
I
Good to know.
I like the idea. I like running in parallel. I think it's a great way to go.
All right, next item, environmental, nothing to report there. Item C, public services. First item is discussion of a paramedic program. You've got a presentation in your packet, Desiree and Chief O.
Yes, so this is something that we have been working at the staff level, identifying what different models of service delivery models are available. And we felt like it was important before we go down that path and start discussing different alternatives to get everybody grounded on where we are today, what kind of services we provide, and where could we find some enhancement and improvement. Because there are different models, and I think that before we go down that path, I want to get a general understanding or a head nod, if you will, of what we take and start refining through the Public Safety Committee. But wanted to give you all a little bit of get all of us educated. I have tons of questions about this all the time when I meet with Chief. So I thought it would be good for the public and for you all to, again, understand where we are at the department level currently, what we offer, and then what we could do differently. So with that, I'll let our Chief go forward with a very quick presentation.
Chief, thanks for joining.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Fregoso. So Chief Hathaway was instrumental in creating this presentation, and there's a quick little video that firefighter Alexandra Luciano also put together for us to show us the all hazards focus on what we do.
That's our biggest hazard there.
Amy or
Amy, you know where? There we go.
oh, it's frozen.
He's clicking, it's changing it here on the computer, but it's not changing.
Me and technology.
Chief, it was all clicking
you
so
worked with
well.
everybody
Yeah.
else before
Yeah,
me.
it's clicking really well.
All right, try it again. Let's see.
There you go.
Yay.
Yay.
Hey, okay. Our department at a glance. So organized and protecting Isle of Palm since 1953. And then what I was speaking to before, all hazards. So initially, when we started out, we have grown from our initial needs of, fire and a little bit of medical, tiny back then, back in the day, in the 50s, and a little bit of water rescue. So as we have grown, we've changed. And so we do a lot of different things that we didn't do in the past. Things are more highly specialized now. They require specialized training, specialized equipment. Obviously, our budget reflects that, and we know data, drives the budget needle. So when we talk about all hazards, we partner with police and everything we do, public services. Recreation's big with our community risk reduction and involving the public. But still, when you look at what we do at the core, it is fire, medical, and water. Those are our big things where we can make a difference to our patients, to our customers. And this video just kind of captures that, some of those skills that we do and how highly specialized some of the things that we're asked to do. So anyway, Firefighter Luciano, she runs our social media on Instagram. If you're not following it, please do. She does a great job, and a lot of these pictures were on Instagram. So all hazard response. So originally we were all volunteer. Some of our history there, and you see the names across the bottom, which I love. We have that in our outside of Lynn's office. And then this is who we are today. We're a career department, which means we have full-time personnel, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365. We are here to serve. So Fire Station 1, there at the PSB. Currently, this is how we're laid out. We have Battalion 1006 with one battalion chief. So he manages the operations in both stations, supervises personnel. We have currently, right now, ladder 1001 with one captain, one engineer, and one firefighter. So the engineer drives the truck, firefighter sits in the back, and then the captain is in the officer seat. On the passenger seat, he or she is supervising the crew. Fire Station 2, down by the marina. We have engine 1002, which is a great truck, a newer apparatus, and we haven't had that many mechanical issues with it. It's been phenomenal. So thank you for that budget purchase and expenditure. One captain, one engineer, one firefighter. And then Tower 1002, and if staffing allows, we only have 10 assigned to the shift, but if we have staffing and we have one engineer and two firefighters, then we will staff that truck, and we'll have 3 fire suppression apparatus in service and 1 battalion chief. So emergency medical response, just a quick overview. Emergency medical responder is formerly first responder. So if you have first aid, CPR, that's the first responder level. That's a basic requirement to be employed here at Isle of Palms as a firefighter. Emergency medical technician basic, that's the service that we provide through, that South Carolina DHEC allows us to provide. That's our license. So we provide basic life support. The next level up from that is emergency medical technician paramedic. And so that how it flows from EMR, which is, full, first time employee coming in the door, minimum requirements, emergency medical technician, which we have 24 of these in the department. So all our trucks, all our apparatus respond emergency medical technician level. In order, at the basic level, in order to be promoted to engineer, to drive the apparatus, you have to have EMT basic. And then this slide will just kind of lay out a little bit of that same information that I noted. That's the minimal requirement. EMTs, you can do an EpiPen, deliver that medication. You can deliver Narcan for an overdose. So we have 24 EMTs and 1 person in EMT school now, and those are EMT basics. Paramedic, I am a paramedic, so I am our sole paramedic. Obviously, I do not practice as such because we don't run that service here yet. But they're an allied health professional, and they're under medical oversight, just like EMT basic. So they operate under standing orders. So for example, Charleston County EMS, they have a small book of things that you can do. And it's just basically like a progression or a flow chart. If you see X, you can do Y and treat the patient. And you don't have to get orders from the physician in order to do those things, whether it's administering medication or other therapeutic interventions. So the physician signs off and says, hey, these are the things that this agency is going to provide. And then you as a paramedic are able to go and provide those things without medical control assistance. Certain things, there's offline and online medical control, but basically if it's a more intensive procedure, you can still perform it, but you sometimes have to get medical control for that. You call the emergency room, you say, hey, this is what we have, this is what we want to do, and they'll tell you, go for it in the best interest of the patient. So basic life support, CPR using an AED, like they did on DeMar Hamlin, the football player. They're on the field, they administered defibrillation through an AED, and then the CPR, hands-on CPR to keep that blood flowing, and your basic first aid skills. Advanced life support through paramedic, there are over 40 different medications that can be administered. So currently, as I noted, we're South Carolina DHEC certified as emergency responder agency, non-transport. And I reached out to Dave Abrams at Charleston County EMS a few weeks ago, and Kim Wynn, their operations chief, and we talked about this and how we're interested, and we have their full support as we navigate this to find out if this is something we want to do. I said, you may hear some things, in the media or articles, and just want you to know we're looking at non-transport. We're not looking at this time, any type of transport services on Isle of Palms. We want to offer paramedic service. That's our proposal, on a non-transport side. So we can do everything that Charleston County EMS can do other than transport the patient. Dr. Christine Carr, who's an MUSC, an Island resident, and our medical control now, she's super excited about this opportunity as well.
What would be her role?
She would continue in the role of medical control, where she would be our physician. She would be, we would have to have two, so we would have to seek out with her assistance another physician, where we have two physicians who are our medical control, who develop our standing orders, our protocols, and anything that we want to do different than another agency or whatever we want to do, we have to go through her. She's basically our legal piece to it, and then our training piece. She oversees the whole thing. We work under her license, so she has to be confident that we can do everything that we're tasked with doing, that we're proficient and competent.
You would call if there was a permission needed to.
Yeah, so we would call the emergency room, actually. We would call whatever receiving facility that we thought we were going to be going to. They can handle that.
Thanks.
Yes, ma'am. So last year, 1,019 calls for service. 477 were classified as medical. Now, we did have, rescue calls, vehicle accidents, and things like that, so those aren't listed. So 46.8% of our call volume, they were emergency medical. So, pretty close to 50% of what we do right off the rip is straight medical and no other call type. So of those 477 calls, 261 required or would have required advanced life support care. So when Charleston County EMS got there, maybe the patient was just dehydrated, they had to administer fluids, that would qualify. Any of those other instances where cardiac monitoring, that's a big one. That's a huge one with a patient that has chest pain or shortness of breath. You need to get a good 12 lead diagnostically. It helps the patient a lot when they get to the hospital where they have that record and they're able to treat them more effectively. So even though you might not have the therapeutic interventions, the diagnostic piece is huge for that patient. So when you look at it, that's about 25% of our calls where our customer is needing us or calling us, but we're not able to provide that until Charleston County EMS gets there. So 25% or almost 26% of our calls, we could utilize paramedic level service, the patient could.
But Chief, that's an average of about 5 per week, and I'm sure the numbers skew during the summer months, during the high season. I'm guessing that you have more calls, obviously.
Absolutely. Yep.
And, but it shows a need to really have people prepared for this, to take this additional step here.
That's correct. And if we have in our departmental report, you might have seen it, but our response times, around 6 minutes, 6.5 minutes. So for us to get on scene, it's really important to be able to deliver all those interventions, because Charleston County EMS, they're going to be significantly, obviously, over that 6 minutes, unless they happen to already be out here.
Do we have that data on what their average response time is?
Good question. We can, as we move forward, if you're interested, we can add that into the research, into the data. I think that's important. I think that's a great point. We can break it down a couple different ways. There's 2 different ways to look at it. One is, when do they arrive on scene? But if, let's say, it takes them 10 minutes to arrive on scene, it's still going to take another 3-4 minutes potentially to get other interventions on board. And then it's the transport time to the hospital. So there's another piece there from how long does it take them, once they receive the patient, how long does it take them to get, to the hospital?
Yeah, I'm more interested in the time the call's made to the time them respond
To the incident?
Yeah.
Yes, we can get that. I believe through Image Trend, we can pull that data pretty easily, at least from January to now. And then we'll go back historically to see in 2022, because we were on a different RMS, record management system, starting in October of last year. But so we should be able to pull that data and get some good numbers for you. I believe that's super important. Here's just a breakdown of just a few things. EMT basic on the left, paramedic on the right. You can do intraosseous, which is a needle that goes into the bone and can deliver the medication. IM is intramuscular, IV, through the vein. 12-lead cardiac monitoring, like we talked about. Transcutaneous pacing, if somebody has a heart rate that is not effective or perfusing for that patient, you can basically turn that cardiac monitor into an external defibrillator and turn up their pulse rate from 30 or 40 up to 60 beats a minute to allow their body to compensate. And then the 40 plus medications that can be delivered. So, paramedics were, it's a great opportunity for us to consider. They're basically, right now we run a wonderful service, but do we want to do more, and does the data show us that we need to do more? So our goal is we want to be proactive. Number one, we want to provide elite level of customer service. Paramedic will allow us to do that. Our population is aging. We do get a surge in the summertime, which sometimes, to Councilman Bogosian's point, what are those response times? And if we're waiting for an extended period of time, it would be great to stabilize that patient, do everything that EMS can do. So as soon as EMS gets there, we just load them into the ambulance and head to the hospital. Also, Charleston County's operating now where they, when they have those high surge days, they'll have EMT basic ambulances. So what does that mean? That means that there's not a paramedic on that ambulance. So for whatever reason, if we receive that EMT basic ambulance because the call seems like, okay, when they read the CAD notes and how it's dispatched, it is not a high priority paramedic call, they will divert an EMT basic ambulance to us. Well, we get on scene and we see, oh, the patient's not compensating. We need a paramedic, level care. If we had paramedics, we could already provide that care. Our paramedic could hop on that EMT basic ambulance and ride with that patient into the hospital, and there would not be a delay. So as time goes on and Charleston County grows and the demand for service grows and the competition for paramedics becomes more fierce, that's something to consider as well. So elite level of customer service, that's what we want to do, not average, good, excellent, great. We want to do elite. We want to increase our department's capabilities by providing advanced life support. And to Mr. Ward's point, talking about, hey, why do we run around these big old ladder trucks and stuff at 2 miles a gallon and sitting over there for a patient who fell and they need medical attention, they don't need a ladder truck. They don't need that specific piece of equipment. So it's a good point. So we would like to look at a squad model where we have something that is more nimble, more efficient. You can get it down a driveway, just an SUV or a Ford F-150. Or you can get it down the beach, right to the patient. So get right there. And so that decreases response times to help stabilize that patient, but also it's more fuel efficient, more cost effective to replace over its life cycle. So the next steps, that kind of bleeds into the next steps a little bit, but we would love to conduct a cost-benefit analysis of this potential opportunity and give you the various different service delivery models for you to consider and ask questions, and then we can get the data, like the response times. Hopefully that'll help, overall budget numbers and what we think would work and what would be a challenge. But your questions will help drive that. So if you have interest, we'd love to do more research and present more data to you.
How long would it take to do this cost-benefit analysis and get back to us?
We've done a lot of that already. Ms. Fregoso has requested that. She's very proactive, and we should be able to get it done within, by the next meeting. Not by public safety tomorrow. It won't be all polished up.
Not that proactive.
Katie?
Chief, if
Under-promise,
this were
over-deliver.
something that, if this were something that you got the green light, could you get this up and running for the summer season?
That would be difficult. I don't think, if we had the green light, let's say in July to start hiring personnel, it's probably still going to take us another 8 to 12 months. If we had the ability, if we had the money in July to start hiring the paramedics. It takes about 12 to 16 months to go through paramedic school. So we would need to hire direct people who currently have paramedic. And we have the apparatus. We can put them on our rescue truck. We can put them on a fire engine. Purchasing the equipment, there's no problem there. But it's a personnel challenge. Going through DHEC is a pretty nimble process as well, but it's just hiring of the personnel. So 8 to 12 months once we have that ability to start hiring personnel.
Katie?
You just answered most of my questions. You said you are a paramedic, no one else in the department is, or?
That's
is
correct,
there?
yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we would have to hire, either get people to start, anyone interested in doing it in the department?
We do have 3.
Oh, great.
We have 3 individuals who are interested in going to paramedic school.
And how many do we need?
We would need, well, it depends on our model, and I don't know if Ms. Fregoso wants me to get into that now.
Go ahead.
You can wait.
But,
Well, yeah, let's just wait until we get the whole package, personally.
Okay.
I mean, because well, Jimmy, go ahead, you had a question.
I just had a comment. You were talking about the fuel costs on the truck.
Yes, sir.
And when I brought this up before, a few years ago, and I was talking about replacing these $1 million, ladder trucks and stuff, it seemed like quite a bit. And they said, and I'd ask, like, how many miles are on the truck? They said, well, it doesn't have many miles. That's not the point. The point is the hours that they're running, because they get on the scene, they don't turn the truck off. And so it's not just a fuel cost, but it's the depreciation each year on these very expensive trucks, which would be, which seems to me to be cost saving. I know it's going to be an additional capital outlay to get this up and running, but there'd be a big savings in not having to replace the more expensive trucks, in my understanding.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. That's a great point.
That's fast.
The hours are huge, and when in my former department, in talking with the police department, the K-9 units have to be replaced in PD very, very quickly because of that fact. They always have to keep it cooled and air conditioned. It's constantly running, and vehicles aren't made to do that. So to your point, absolutely. Same thing with fire trucks. Just like an SUV, it's not meant to do that. And that does definitely wreak havoc on the system. It's just not, even though they know it's a fire truck, it's still a Detroit diesel or Cummins. It's not meant to do that.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
Chief, when you come back with the analysis, I mean, I'm assuming there's multiple ways to staff this, whether we contract with a private company, hire it ourselves, leverage the county. I mean, is that part of this analysis, or what's the?
So Ms. Fregoso asked, we do that full picture, and so it would be our service delivery model here, a couple different options for y'all to consider. One is private opportunity for you to consider, but I won't get into all the pieces about that, but we did research that. Charleston County EMS, they are doing everything they can and doing a wonderful job. But as far as them committing to us, I mean, they are Charleston County EMS, so they have to have a whole county umbrella. And so that piece is, will be in the presentation, but that's really, any enhancement is not an opportunity right now for Charleston County EMS. They're doing everything they can and doing a wonderful job, but.
So there is a contract option that'll come back to this. It's not just staffing for us.
Correct, there is, and I'll explain at that time, what we have found out and how that would be potentially problematic, and it may not be operationally feasible, even though a number was given to us, a budget number. But we'll present all that.
Okay,
Okay.
just like to
Jan?
add one thing. And you'll look at an option where maybe we just train several paramedics to have on staff just for our benefit, regardless of what we do with the vehicle.
So as far as paramedic level service,
Yeah, so that we could have a paramedic that's available for a call, even if we don't have the whole service here on the separate vehicle for it on the island.
so sure, we can lay it out in any way y'all like. I think what'll make sense is if we lay out some of those pieces that y'all are talking about, and it'll speak to you, and you can be, okay, I understand that. Let's look at this, or did you look at that? And we realize we'll have to go back to the drawing board and take your questions and take your comments and repackage them to get you the answers. But yes, so we can lay it out. However, with the options, it makes sense because we want you to understand it, because there is a capital cost, there is a personnel cost. But being proactive is obviously the mission and one of the key points in our fire department. We want to deliver that elite level of customer service. And to Councilman Pierce's point, we obviously can't do it overnight, to his question. So it's going to take some time. But as our population ages and as we see different service demands, we definitely feel that this is, I'm excited we're talking about it right now because it's huge from the community aspect. And when you look back at, those old pictures, the black and white pictures, we started out as a volunteer department. I mean, as we move through, we have to grow and adjust and adapt, and that's what we're doing now, and letting y'all drive the ship on the approval.
Desiree, do you have?
No, I just want to, the options are going to look very different if the goal is to implement a program that includes the transport by IOP of the patient to the hospital versus having paramedic level service be provided by our personnel. It will still require addition to staff to do that. We cannot just get our existing personnel, go through paramedic school, and then be serving in that capacity as well. So we'll get into all of that through public safety, but it's much broader than that if you look at whether you're transporting a patient or not.
Right.
I think that's going to be a big key differential between the different models.
Just address it, that's all I'm asking.
So even though we have 24, EMTs on the staff, they're still serving as full-time.
Firefighters.
Correct. So there's going to be shift work going on. They're not going to always be available to be a paramedic if they're serving on a shift, because you can't break away from it at some point, I guess. So there's got to be additional. You're talking additional headcount to make this work at some point,
Absolutely.
either through contract or through our own department.
Absolutely. And that's why we, that little video with the all hazards to show, we're dual role, but we're also multi-role as far as, we're in the water, we're at a fire, we're at medical, we're at the vehicle accident. So we try to portray that, to put that education piece across.
Just curious, how much does it cost to get paramedic training? If you're an EMT now, what would be the cost approximately to be a paramedic?
I'll have to get you that exact number now,
Yeah,
because when I went through in 2007, it was a lot less. But it's definitely more affordable than you realize. What is the cost driver is the backfilling their position if they're needed. Like if they say we have 3 individuals, sending those individuals to school to pay overtime for personnel to cover their spot for a short time, that's a big cost piece to that. But
So fully loaded is more than just the cost of the training itself. It's everything you got to do to backfill.
Correct. And so we're going to do our due diligence on that to get you the apples to apples numbers. But from what I remember, it was around, $5,000 to $7,000 per individual. But the backfill is the big cost piece.
Well, it's good info. Thank you all for
Really good.
bringing it to us.
We're really
Thank you.
moving ahead. I mean, there's a story about the old days when there's just volunteers, that they were all at the Exchange Club having a costume party. and they had a fire. So they were riding down Palm Boulevard and all
Nice.
dressed up in their costumes.
Yeah, that's great.
Chief didn't put that picture up.
I was looking really hard at that old picture. See if that
Yeah.
was the one.
Yeah. That sounds good.
So we'll bring the second piece to the Public Safety Committee meeting. It's being held first Tuesday at 10 a.m. So March 7th will be the next meeting. We'll prepare more data and information about the options for you all to review.
All right, Chief, thank you.
Yeah, thank y'all.
Good work.
Thank you.
Next item is item 2, discussion of recommendation from Public Safety Committee to prohibit electric bikes on the beach. Jimmy or Desiree, there's a draft in your packet.
Just a quick comment. I think the feeling is that all other motorized vehicles are prohibited from the beach, and the electric bike is a fairly new phenomena, and there's some safety concerns with them, and that's why we wanted to bring it to full council.
Gotcha.
So in your packets, you have a red line of the 2 sections that would need to be amended. Essentially, we're expanding motorized, the prohibitions around motorized vehicles to include e-bikes. That currently, there's no specific prohibition on them, and in order for us to be able to enforce, we would need this ordinance. As Councilmember Ward stated, there are concerns about potential collisions on the beach. As you know, in the season, our beach gets really full, and these pieces, these vehicles essentially can generate a substantial speed, and there's a concern. There's just a safety concern around them. Many beach communities are, as these become more popular, they are enacting ordinances that would prohibit. So this is sort of consistent to what we're seeing in other beach communities.
How big of an issue is this right now?
Forsyth, can you answer? Do we get a lot of calls in the police department about e-bikes?
Yes, ma'am. We do.
If you don't mind going to the lectern. Thank you.
Desiree, while he's coming up.
Sure.
Does this also include other motorized skateboards and things that'll run 25 miles an hour?
Right now, it's just
Just says
specific to
bicycles.
e-bikes.
Okay.
So not like the one or whatever.
Lieutenant Forsyth, Police Department.
Hey, Rob, would you
If
pull
you
the mic?
don't mind speaking
Pull the
into the
mic
mic.
Is this a little better?
Yes,
Is it
yes.
on?
It is.
Yep.
Lieutenant Forsyth with the Police Department. As far as calls for service, we do get calls and complaints, but as far as having incidents involving the bikes, none that I know of are on record at this point. But we do have a lot of calls for service where people are complaining about them being on the beach. So,
About them being reckless on the beach?
just being
just
on the
being
beach
on it,
in
yeah.
general, people call that they're on the beach, and of course, we don't have a way of enforcing that or doing anything. At this point, we haven't had an incident, though, where there's been an issue, but of course, there always could be in the future.
If they were going slower, would it be less of an issue?
Well, then we'd, it'd be trying to gauge that, trying to gauge at what speed, or it's very subjective, trying to figure that out.
Mr. Mayor, I know Wild Dunes is grappling with this issue right now, too, and I believe they're restricting where the motorized vehicles can run.
So-
Mayor, I think
sorry.
Councilmember Pierce may have,
Scott?
we can't hear you.
Oh,
Oh, there you go. We can hear you now.
you can't hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, this is maybe more firsthand information. I run the beach pretty frequently, and it used to be a intermittent occurrence to see those bikes on the beach. Yeah, I'm seeing them very, very frequently now, and they can get up to between 30 and 40 miles an hour pretty easily. I don't think they're a real hazard when it's not crowded and when there's 100 yards of beach. But if it's more crowded and you got 50 yards of beach, I've seen a couple of close calls, and some of the kids are getting out there and running them pretty hard. But they look like a lot of fun, but I probably would advise to get them off the beach.
Blair?
Yeah, I would agree with what Councilman Pierce said. They also ride up in the dunes, like dirt bikes. And I've seen a lot of that down at mine at the beach. I talked to Chief Cornett about this at one point. and asked him, what's the difference between these motorized bikes that'll go 30 miles an hour and a motorcycle, electric motorcycle? He said, functionally, there is no difference. You agree with that, Lieutenant?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
So from that perspective, maybe at another time, we need to consider requiring licenses for people riding electric bicycles. I see them all the time going down Palm Boulevard with traffic at 30 miles an hour, and they're 12-year-olds.
Didn't Sullivan's Island prohibit electric bikes a while back on the beach?
I believe last year, late last year.
So Desiree, what's next? So this is a red line. It'll come on the 28th as an ordinance, I guess?
If there's consensus to
Yeah.
bring this forward, we'll put it in ordinance form for you all.
Okay, I've got one nitpick, and that is on section 7-3-3, it says no vehicles, and you've used the word motorized vehicles when you've talked about it. I don't know whether we need to make that distinction or not.
Okay, we'll take a look at that.
Mayor, my computer has died, so I can't tell you which section it is, but is there any interest from council in including more than just electric bicycles, any electric motorized vehicle? I know that those large-wheeled skateboards run just as fast and can be just as dangerous.
Yeah, it also seems like a little bit hard to delineate between, I mean, obviously they have names, but I think it would probably make more sense to just include any motorized vehicle, period.
Did y'all talk about that in committee or not?
A little bit.
Okay.
I've always thought it was motorized vehicles, but it's brought to my attention that they were somehow
Gotcha.
could be exempt. I thought we'd just better address it, see if there's any appetite from council.
So maybe it sounds like a broader definition than just an e-bike.
Like motorized, yeah.
Yeah.
Might be easier to write that way anyway.
Yeah.
Can't do it in a motion, but
It'll come up
Let's-
for.
I mean, they're gonna
Yeah, let's us look at it, and whatever we bring before you all as part of a first reading will be redlined, and certainly can make changes at that time prior to ratification.
Okay,
All right, thank you all.
thank you.
Next item is discussion of proposals from engineering firms to design an emergency beach access path through the Charleston County Park. Again, you've got a memorandum from Douglas and some attachment material in your packet. Douglas, you want this one?
Yes, the fire department and the building department have been working on this for a few months. And this need arose with dealing with the beach access paths on the Breach Inlet end of the island. Robert has been struggling keeping those paths passable. Ninth Avenue in particular is a path that, as it erodes, we have a high tide, that creates a cliff there at Ninth Avenue. So that's led the fire department to be primarily accessing the beach on this end at Fifth Avenue, which, as you all know, is a little bit farther away from the public safety building than they would like. So it led us to looking at alternatives of more stabilized sections of the beach, flat sections of the beach, and sections that are close to the public safety building. And that led us to analyzing specifically the county park, Charleston County Park. Right there would be an easy launch for them. So we have been engaged with the county park. We've had meetings with them over this concept. And in short, what it would be really a driveway right there at the curve of Ocean Boulevard and 14th, a break in the fence, and then a new path that would lead them all the way through the back fence, over the dune, and out onto the beach right there in front of the county park. So we've talked to engineering firms that we've dealt with. I think we received a total of 4 different proposals. They were a pretty wide range. I think of cost between about $50,000 and about $8,000. We felt like Davis and Floyd was that they fully understood what we wanted, and their price reflected that. And so we would like to request that you all approve Davis and Floyd working on this project with us. What they'll do is develop plans and then hold a series of meetings between our staff and the county staff, get everybody comfortable with the plan. Once everybody likes the plan, we would then use those plans and go out for pricing with the hopes of doing this next winter. And as kind of an aside, and we'll talk about this more at budget time, but there, in addition to this fee for the plans, we do anticipate there being a construction cost that would need to be put into the budget for next year as well. So at this time, we're just asking for the funding for the design at about $8,000.
And Douglas, I noticed their bid is from November. Is that still good? There's not a
Yes.
time limit on it?
Yeah, we reached back out to them, and in addition to being old, they've also had staff members. The author of that bid is no longer with them, but we've reached back out, and they tell us that the pricing is still good.
So all of it's a city expense, design, construction, the whole thing?
Correct.
There's no way to get the council, get Charleston County to pay for any of it, since it's their park?
I think that they feel, I think by giving us permission to do it, they feel like they're contributing.
That's their
Doing their part.
Well, I think once we have refined numbers of what the construction would look like, there may be opportunities that we can explore with them, for some type of cost share. They could be agreeable to it or not, but I think it's 7,000. The whole project and initiative was generated by the city and us trying to find a more suitable access path for our vehicles. I think at the end of the day, it's going to benefit every county resident that comes to the beach that require emergency response. So I would feel comfortable us moving forward with the design and conceptualizing it, and once we know if we're going to go down that path, then start talking about a cost share with the county.
I think we also felt like it would be a good opportunity for grant funding. We obviously haven't identified the grant, but it seems like a need that people would be interested in helping with. So we haven't given the funding of the construction that much thought yet, but we certainly will get there and look at opportunities.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all. Next item is item 4, discussion of proposed temporary parking agreement with Islander 71, shared parking lot at the Island Beach Marina. Again, in your packet, you've got a memo from Douglas with some attachments. Rusty or Douglas, who wants to?
Rusty, you want me to take it, or you want to?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and lead it
Okay,
off, and
yeah.
I'll weigh in.
So,
along with the staff.
as you all will recall, once the new marina operator sold that lease, he basically removed himself from any interest in what's on the screen as green there. That's what we call the shared parking spaces. And in that space, we had the prior operator in the marina, the restaurant, had a memorandum of understanding for this past summer, but that memorandum expired. We worked through, and we were trying to work through a more permanent reconfiguration of all 3 of those spaces. So the red, the green, and yellow, we were working through real property. And I feel like we were close, but we kind of got hung up on finer details of the number of trailer spaces that were needed. So we also could see that the summer was quickly coming upon us, and that we probably were going to run out of time to get a major overhaul done for this summer. So we recognized the need to get something together to get us through this summer, with the idea that we would spend the summer very actively analyzing the usage at that lot. That's part of the mystery here is we have a new marina operator, and we didn't really have data that we felt confident in on the usage of these facilities. So we felt like if we gave a pause for a summer, we collected data, and we came up with a temporary arrangement that would get us through this summer, that we would be in good shape. So we have engaged with the Islander 71 owners, and we've come up with a concept that they are generally agreeable to. And the concept would be to kind of an overriding principle of we would share everything 50-50. There's been a lot of kind of debate as to what sharing means is. So that was kind of the overriding concept, is that we would share everything 50-50 between the city residents and the restaurant patrons. And of course, the restaurant has made it clear that residents would also be able to use their half. So, you know, at the end of the day, we feel like the residents could really get,
The red. Their half is the red, just to orient them.
well, but when we split the green 50-50, residents would also be able to use their half of the green as well. So the concept was to share 50-50. The idea is if you visualize the perimeter of that green ring, so you have the kind of upside down L that's currently exclusive to city residents, we would share exclusive use of all of the spaces in that perimeter for 24 hours a day. So we think there's about 38 spaces around the perimeter of that lot. So at 38 spaces, the residents would get 19 spaces exclusively, kind of 24 hours a day, and the restaurant would get 19 exclusively. We didn't really want to put a number to it because we felt like there could be some reconfiguration that would either cause a gain, and we wanted to be sure if there was a gain, we both benefited from that, or it could be a reduction and that we would share in the reduction equally as well. So the easy part is kind of the perimeter. We count them up, we split them in two. The harder part is the middle part, and those spaces are used, and Brian used those spaces in the morning for trailers. And then each space, as it was vacated in the afternoon, we are told would then become 2 car spaces. So they were kind of a flexible use of space where it would be a trailer in the morning and then 2 cars in the afternoon. So we've tried to continue that use with the idea that island residents would get the 12 trailer spaces exclusively in the first half of the day. And then at 3 o'clock, those spaces would begin to be handed over to the restaurant. And as trailers left, there wouldn't be a deadline that you had to get out, but there would be a prohibition on overnight trailers. So you would need to get it out before midnight. But as those trailers left, they would free up to the usage of the restaurant. So that's really in a nutshell how we see the lot operating. In terms of how that would happen, we have the restaurants made it clear that they feel like it's very important to have somebody to direct the traffic. They've had a very hard time if a car gets into place and it's in the wrong place. They really have challenges correcting that after the fact. So they have appealed to us that it would be beneficial for everybody's benefit, for everybody's usage, if there was a person, basically a kiosk, that you had to be approved to go into one of those spaces before you parked. So we had talked about sharing the cost of that attendant. We're working on exactly the hours of the day. They're saying now that they think it would need to be from Thursday to Sunday every week during the summer for 3 months. So we have some estimates on what that would cost. We're continuing to work on that. The other part of it would be some minimal type of boundary. So basically a rope to direct access to one central ingress and egress. So that's in a nutshell what we think is a workable solution for the summer. Be happy to answer any questions about that.
Douglas, a couple of things to just really reinforce on this too before we open it up to questions is this is a temporary arrangement. We're talking about the 3 months or so from Memorial Day through Labor Day.
That's correct, and I'll just interject here for a quick. So last year, for several months, the Real Property, now the Public Services and Facilities Committee, has been talking and reviewing alternative parking layouts for that whole section of the marina. As You know, you all know Schuler has no control or interest in managing any or using any of the spaces there, so it would be up to the city and the restaurant to agree on a new layout. The goal would be for us to continue to work towards that. I think that there's a lot of potential in reconfiguring that whole, that entire area, connected to the upcoming public dock, green space. I think we were running a little bit out of time to get anything in place before this season, and I think Douglas already touched on the challenges with identifying how the new operation of the marina, the boat club, the improvements that the new operator is doing there, how that will create a different demand, if there is any, for more resident-only parking spaces in that spot.
So we think there's an opportunity here to sort of complement each other, basically. I mean, if you go through this, you test it for 3 months. I don't want to call it a test, but you do this for 3 months, you gather the data, and, in the meanwhile, the marina store is getting itself redone. At some point within the next, I guess, few weeks, it's going to start redoing their parking lot. And then at the end of the season, we can all get back together, and hopefully make a more informed decision about how all that parking sort of complements each other.
Yeah.
After the season and after gathering the data that we can get. And the other thing I want to reinforce too is that, we have resident parking's free down there. I mean, we've got a good situation for residents down there, and it's going to continue to be so. And for myself, I honestly think that, this is a win, a real win for the residents going forward, even though we're going to have, this summer here is going to be sort of test, trial, and find out what works. But I think at the end of the day, we're going to have a much better property down there with more people happy, satisfied going forward because of what we're doing, doing this in a thoughtful way. Cost share, I'm all for it myself, and I know we're certainly not voting tonight or anything, but I think we do truly cost share, though. I think right now with the yellow area, the private lot, is that what it is?
Mm-hmm. The employee.
Right now, we have an agreement between Islander 71, right?
So that is the agreement that Islander 71 had entered with the former marina operator for the exclusive use of those spaces. So we have assumed that agreement, and that would be a separate agreement for what we're talking about here. But
Right.
we do get some revenue associated with their ability to exclusively use that yellow lot for their
And that
employees.
revenue, in my mind, that revenue should be, that contract or whatever should stay the same as what it's been, and that cost share with this attendant would be truly cost share.
It would be a new expense
Half out
for
of
them.
theirs, half out of ours.
Well, there'd be cost sharing on the maintenance too of the park.
Right, exactly.
John?
Yeah, I don't disagree that getting more data and understanding how that area is used, if the change of marina is a good idea, but what data are we going to collect in order to make sure that we do have better information to make a final decision in the fall or whenever that comes? Are we looking at, I know one of the biggest issues we talked about last time was the number of trailers there. Are we going to be counting the number of trailers on a daily basis? Are we going to be looking at how many residents are actually there on a daily basis, or and how's that information collected? So that we can get a better, data set to make a decision on.
So that would be the attendant that would be there Thursday through Sunday. That would be one of their responsibilities is as they let people, that's the whole, I guess, the whole idea of having an attendant is they would be directing people as they come. They would check, are you a resident? Do you have the proper decal? If so, then they're directed to park in those middle spaces and that would be accounted for. So we would know, and I think that was a reason that I think we all struggle try to identify what the right number of resident-only trailer parking spaces should there be there, because the the current marina operator has about 13 or 15 trailer parking spaces that he's already said they will be free for residents as well. So we just don't know, are those 13 going to be enough, or we need an additional 10, or or will 5 in that area suffice? I guess that was what we all struggled with. And hopefully getting that information about how many residents actually use it would help you all make that decision.
And that's really only going to be gathered through Thursday through Sunday, basically, during those weeks of the summer.
We do have a camera set up
Yeah.
in that location, and our goal would be to, document several times of the day, 9 a.m., 1 p.m., 3, be consistent throughout each day. So we're looking into what would we need to be able to do that. For the days where we don't have an attendant, we can still collect that information.
With parking studies, you're always interested in parking accumulation. So what we really need is just a couple of key points at the peak periods of the day, which is exactly what you're doing, where we start and where we end up. And that would be fine. I don't know, I'm not clear exactly about how the marina spaces for trailers will work. Will it be, I know they were for use by Isle of Palm residents, but I don't know if that was exclusive or not. Do you?
It's not.
I don't think it was
It's not.
exclusive.
It's
It's
not
just free to
exclusive.
So we can see how that works as well, and use that data. But the main question that we had was, what kind of demand do we have from the Isle of Palms residents for trailer spaces? And I think that what you have in mind will give us that information. Probably a Thursday and a Saturday or Sunday are good times to check, because then we'll know what you need during the week and what you might need on the peak weekend. That'll give us the data we need.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Hey, I was going to say, hey, John, it might not be the scientific data that we're going to get, but it's better than what we have now, which is nothing.
Yeah.
So,
One other thing I wanted to bring up also is, and I know this is just kind of a working color slide here, basically with the pink, green, yellow, blue, whatever those colors are. But could we definitely make sure that even though this is a temporary arrangement, that we designate an appropriate amount of spaces to ADA compliance? It doesn't really show on here.
Yeah, we have 2 next
Yeah.
to the entrance to the public
The
dock.
two right there, okay.
Yeah, and they would stay
Does
there.
that fit what we need to do for this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, we
All
would
right.
not, we're not proposing to change that at this point.
Okay.
For this year, would leave as is, but we certainly would improve those with the permanent iteration.
Right, right.
Of the plan.
Okay, thank you.
Good.
Yes, we will draft this in a way that could be executed by both parties once approved. Again, this would be through the end of Labor Day. If there are any additional refinements that come out of our conversation with the restaurant, we don't anticipate any. We try to keep it very simple and straightforward that everybody can understand. But we'll bring this before you all for approval at your February 28th meeting, because signs need to be ordered and placed, and the perimeter, securing the perimeter also needs to take place. So we'd like to get that done before we kick off the season.
Good, thank you. Yep, go ahead.
not to get into the weeds, but at the committee level, I brought up, is 3 o'clock the right time to stop? Because a lot of people like sunset cruises, so I think we should think about that, what's a stopping point? And maybe instead of 3, it's 5 or 6 to where it transfers over to the restaurant, but.
So that point was made, and I guess policy, for lack of a better word, that we thought up and proposed to the restaurant and that they're agreeable with is at 3 o'clock, begin the transition, but manage it in such a way that they would only park cars when there would be one additional open space for a trailer. So basically, 2 would have to open up before the first cars could go in. leaving that one for a trailer until some later hour. So does that make sense, that we would manage it such that there would be one open until, it really got too late to launch a boat? There is the possibility that, two open up, they put cars in one, and then immediately after that, a trailer comes in and it's full. And then they would have to halt until two more opened up. So there'd be the one for a trailer, and then they could use the second one. So that's kind of the rolling, the point is made that they don't want the lot to be empty until 5. If there's 12 spaces there and 9 of them are open, that we're just holding them out and saying, no, you gotta hold off until, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. So we thought that was a good compromise where it would be actively managed to try to always have at least one trailer space even after the 3 o'clock hour.
So you're
But
transitioning from 3 o'clock on.
That's right. I think we want to keep, maintain some availability for those folks that decide to take their boat out, after 3 p.m., that there would be at least some availability. But if folks park there before 3 p.m., they don't have to leave by 3. They could leave until midnight. It's just that after a certain time, those become available to the restaurant.
And with an attendant, he can direct cars to the perimeter spaces first. And assuming that the restaurant isn't going to need all of their parking at 5 o'clock, we should be able to manage that, I think, fairly well.
That's right.
All right, thank you. Next item is personnel. 2 items coming from the Administration Committee. The first one is increase hourly rate of beach service officers to $18 per hour. And second is change the budgeted part-time seasonal code enforcement position to a full-time position. John or Desiree, any color commentary or?
Well, I mean, the first one on the BSOs, I think we have trouble filling those positions at the current rate. I think the compensation in the area has changed quite a bit, so in order to be more effective at filling those positions, I think we have, 9 openings right now?
Correct.
To fill those, that we increased the rate to $18 an hour. You can talk more about it, any color to it, Desiree.
So no, nothing, not a whole lot to add. Your packet includes a one sheet that talks about assuming that we're fully staffed for the hours that we need to for the entire summer. At that rate, based on the number of hours worked last season, we'd be looking at an additional $60,000 over budget. If we fill out the hours that were worked last year, which I think we assume or would like to be fully staffed this season, we'd be looking at a $10,000 increase to current budget numbers. And just as a reminder, this whole operation is funded by state accommodation and tax revenue, which we've had a really good year of. So we have fund balance to support that.
Mayor, I'd suggest doing it 20 an hour, not 18. I mean, it's 20 an hour for dishwashers right now on the island. 25 for dishwashers, so, I know that people are now scoffing. They're now scoffing at $18 an hour. I do it at 20.
We just need to go back through committee or, I don't, but we're not.
You're not voting anything tonight, but we can run the analysis. We other communities are paying for similar positions, and Sullivan's just changed their rate to 18, so we'd be, competitive with them, but we are slightly higher than other communities. So we'd be, I think $18 would be competitive, but certainly, I don't think we need to go to $20 an hour. I do appreciate your eagerness, but I think that
Well, it's
18.
important positions, and we couldn't fill them last year.
That's
so.
right. And we were at $15 last year.
Yeah.
So I think it would be a sizable, I think, increase to 18. We do offer additional to those that are returning. So if they've already worked with us, they get. I think we're planning on doing $18.50 or $19 an hour. So that's an incentive for those folks that are returning.
Is there a way to have to be able to address this if we are still not able to fill the positions, or would it be too late at that point?
No, I think we can, at that point, we can pivot if that's, we face that challenge.
Do you think it's important to get these positions filled?
Yeah.
I agree.
And we were fully staffed last year in the BSOs, right?
2 years ago. We were last year?
Yeah, we were last year.
Oh,
Yeah,
we were fully staffed last year.
that's what I heard.
I stand
Well,
corrected. But I think it was the first time in several years
Yeah.
that I got
But we
right,
were.
that we were.
Well, from a committee level, I definitely support this and always have supported BSOs. In fact, I've always been of the mind that hire as many as you can because they basically pay for themselves. And then we have accommodations tax, which is utilized also. But, to me, I'm not as hung up on $18, $20, or $25 an hour as having enough on hand during the high season to take care of business, so to speak. So whatever it takes, and if we can get fully staffed and do it at $18 an hour, fine. If not, I think to Council Member Hans' thoughts there, we might want to take a look at moving that even higher if we have to.
And just for context, or for just giving you all a little sneak peek of something we're going to be talking to public safety tomorrow, is we have been spending some time evaluating the cost-benefit analysis of outsourcing parking management, from issuing tickets to paying tickets to going to court. And that is something that we're seeing across similar communities, and it from a financial perspective seems to make sense. We have been looking at some proposals from companies that are doing it in other communities, and our goal would be to go through this analysis with you all through this upcoming budget, so that we can make a decision about whether we move in that direction for next season. So this is a moving target. This is a huge piece to policing in our community during the summer. And we want to look and make sure that we're using our resources, appropriately. And if there's something that can make us more efficient in the whole operation, we certainly want to look at. And we have. So we'll be having that conversation through the budget process very soon.
As I remember it, we were using college students for BSOs, and we got fully staffed at 15 an hour because we went to high school students. They are not as effective and just don't have the maturity to do some of what needs to be done. Was that an issue at all, Lieutenant Forsyth?
They're required to have a high school diploma to work with us. But even though most of our BSOs tend to be college students, we don't have them for the entire season because they start leaving. So we are always limping along at the end of our season because they've left, and we have a hard time hiring somebody for a couple weeks.
Yeah, that's been part of the problem historically, I think, is that, since most of them are staffed by college students, they're a little late getting here because of, getting out of college. And then they leave a little early because they got to get prepped to get back into college. So you have those, I don't know what the cumulative total of the weeks are, but you got a week or two at least at the beginning of the season, week or two at the end of the season that we start seeing the numbers dwindling. And, so that's really something we need to try to work around. It'd be great if we could get, more seniors involved in something like this. But I guess it would be tough for us to do. And the other thing I've asked before is if there's some way that we can entice more college students and somehow help them, if it's possible, get some sort of credit, some sort of college credit, with the colleges and the universities for doing this summer work, that would be helpful too.
Yeah, we can certainly look at that. I don't think it's going to make a whole lot of difference in terms of when we have them here, but it certainly could be an incentive for more people to be interested in doing this kind of work.
Yeah.
All right, and the second item is changing the part-time seasonal code enforcement position to a full-time position. And I know our staff will come back to us on the 28th with kind of a full package of staffing needs from an enforcement standpoint. John, anything else to?
No, this was a part-time position that was, again, is very critical, especially in light of the discussions we've been having on livability and some of the issues we're facing, I think that making us a full-time position makes sense because we just can't get it filled the way it's structured today.
And you can see in your package, just for your benefit, there's an analysis of moving the second code enforcement from part-time to full-time. We have about $60,000 budgeted currently. They don't include any health, which we would have to incorporate if we move it to a full-time position. But we're looking at essentially breaking even. There's not a big budgetary impact if we do that. Obviously, if we hire somebody at the lower end of the range, we'll be good from a budgetary standpoint. But the more experience we get, we may need additional funds. But you can look at our current actual for current code enforcement position and what we have budgeted today.
Thank you.
For my benefit, could you describe what the basically what the code enforcement officer's duties are? What do they cover?
They cover all just code enforcement. So looking at business licenses, they're the ones that are pursuing livability complaints. They also are being very active in the short-term rental management, looking at those folks that are unlicensed. They do a lot of things, but mostly code related. But if we need support in other areas, they would definitely fill in as well.
Okay, what about with complaints? Do they address complaints? Or is that-
Livability complaints, they do as well.
Okay, so noise and parking and things like that.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
thank you.
All right. Item E, other items for discussion, update on RFP for design and engineering of elevator at Maria Restaurant. You've got in your packet that proposal, Desiree or Douglas.
Yes, we opened proposals on Friday. Only one company responded. We have entered into direct negotiations. That's how state law requires. We deal with architectural firms. They can't really give us a cost proposal when they respond to an RFQ. So we have requested that now that they were the only ones that submitted, they're certainly qualified to do this work, to give us a cost estimate for the design and engineering services. We hope to have something more concrete in terms of the amount that you would need to approve by the 28th.
Okay.
So more on that.
And this is the firm that helped with the renovations of the public safety building, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So we've worked with them before.
Yes, ma'am.
Same people.
Very good, thank you. Item 7, financial review. You've got in your packet. Deb, if we can do a quick-ish. All right. You can go here, Debbie, if you want.
So revenues are in good shape.
Thank you, Debbie. Oh, you're not done.
Most are ahead of prior
Debbie,
year.
can you do this? Thank you.
Is that better?
Yes.
That's-
Expenditures in the general fund are right on budget, and for all the other major funds are a little bit below budget. That's probably indicative of some projects that we've got budgeted this year that will be moving into FY '24. Cash and fund balances are strong. One thing, my last point, interest income, on the second page, you can see that at the LGIP, the interest rate for January was 4.572. And when I looked year-to-date, we've earned $620,000 compared to a budget of $28,000. So that's a nice little point to end on. And I'm all done.
Amy,
Unless
do you-
anybody has any questions.
Do you have this for the slide, sorry? Yep, thank you, Debbie. Keep rocking on our schedules if you want.
Okay.
Because there's some pretty good news there too, obviously.
One point on, I'm looking at the municipal accommodations tax schedule. If you notice, the revenues have been up and down all year long, kind of weirdly. When I called the county to ask about that, and they've had some personnel issues, and she said they were just behind in posting receipts. But the February payment should catch everything up. So I think that's good news on the municipal accommodations fee and the beach preservation fee.
So that November number is an anomaly. is what you're saying? For FY '20,
Yes.
yeah.
There's, like usually you can see a very clear trend.
Yeah.
And you can tell in FY '23, the monthly amounts go up and down compared to the prior year, which is weird. So if they've had some issues with getting collections posted on a timely basis, that kind of explains that. State aid tax, we received a quarterly payment running at 9% of the prior year. And the municipal and state aid tax increases from the prior year should be about the same. So you can see we're at 3% on the county and 9% of the state. So that's also indicates that there's just a problem there.
We haven't gotten the county passed
We have
through
not
yet.
gotten the county's payment for February yet. Hospitality tax, 21% ahead of the prior year. Looks good. Local option sales tax, 9% over the prior year. And if you look just against FY '20, the pre-COVID numbers, you can see every month we've got a healthy increase over the prior year. So
Yeah,
that just
I mean, significant, yeah.
that just indicates the strong economic activity on the island from all sources, because local option sales tax is paid on accommodations plus retail sales. Drainage Phase 3, very little to report. No construction costs. We've had some Thomas and Hutton engineering costs included there in FY '23. And we've added a new project worksheet for the marine improvements at the public dock, T-Dock, and green space. In the gray box, you can see the budget numbers for FY '23. And then the total so far contracted is $163,000. That's all to ATM for design, engineering, permitting, bidding, that type of thing. And then we showed 2 invoices, including work through December 9th.
Very good. Thank you, Debbie.
You're welcome.
Good report. Next item, procurement requests for approval of an amount not to exceed $18,000 for the purchase of AED defibrillators. This would be a non-budgeted item, so you've got a sheet in your packet showing that. Desiree, anything to add there?
No, this would be, we did not include any funds for this expenditure in our current budget. We should have. So we'll be including any replacements in future years. This would give them the ability to replace current AED and add a handful more to current apparatus. So fully supported. We identified Muni A tax, non-capital tools and equipment. It'll be coded there, even though there's no budgeted amount, but it will be in the future.
Okay, thank you. Next item, capital projects update. Desiree?
All right, I'll go quickly. We'll start with the Phase 3 drainage project. 38 and 36, as you all know. The road work has started and the detour has been in place since end of January. Contractor indicated that it would take about 8 to 10 weeks before they move on and finish there and move on to Forest Trail. They are making really good progress. It may be that we don't need to have the detour in place for that long, but we just don't know yet. I did want to alert you all that we have been contacted and we have been meeting with some of the neighbors that are directly adjacent to the project area, concerns with the integrity of their foundation, and just potential results of a lot of the shaking, a lot of the digging, a lot of the movement there. So we've been proactively working with them, and more on that. But I did want to let you know that we've been working with some neighbors on some potential issues there. 41st Avenue, we're still waiting on the Army Corps of Engineers permit on that. I know. We keep being told that it's a matter of time when they issue it. They're short-staffed, and no additional questions have been asked from the Army Corps to our engineers, and that's a good sign. Most of those questions were answered as part of the OCRM process, so we anticipate again that coming up anytime now. Next project, we have the Comprehensive Drainage Master Plan. I think we've already reported to you all that the two main the two contractors that we're working on this project have transitioned to a new company. So since then, we've met with the new project managers. We feel good with the team they put together and their commitment to completing this project. So not a whole lot of progress since January when that transition has happened. We are still working on the development standards and having them review our current maintenance plans to identify where improvements could be made. So we're going to be moving forward on that.
Desiree, is this hopefully a March presentation from them?
I think it could be, yes. So part of this I just wanted to add is you all will recall that Thomas and Hutton did the analysis of the Phase 3 area, so that area between kind of 41st and 20 or 30th. Davis and Floyd did the rest of the island, so 30th basically to Breach Inlet. We have asked them, and they're really pretty much done with that analysis. We have asked that they give us a proposal for what it would take to fold in Thomas and Hutton's work so that when we build a list of projects and priorities, they would all be built with the same, basically with the same modeling, so that we would be really comparing apples to apples when we're prioritizing what the next projects are. So we are waiting for a piece of that. But other than that part, I think they're very, very much ready for reporting. They haven't done as Desiree said, they haven't done the review of development standards, but the rest of it is complete.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to ask, it says the city received a draft report, including existing assessment, hydraulic modeling, and recommended improvements. Being the nerd that I am, is it available for us to review?
Yes, we
Okay.
can share that.
Okay.
I thought we had. If we hadn't,
I might have
that's-
misplaced it, so.
Well, they want, I think, we're going to talk to them because I think they did say, we wanted to be sure you all are comfortable before we distribute it. So
Yeah.
we were comfortable with it, so I think it was just kind of a matter of removing draft from that part of it. So feel sure that they would be comfortable with that. So we'll verify that and then send it out.
All right, next project. Believe it or not, we received a tentative construction date for this project.
I'm not sure I believe it, but okay.
I saw them out there
Maybe
today.
somehow.
They're
I
surveying.
think they were out there.
Those guys.
Yeah.
Well, I hope they're not working on the project. I'm waiting on their cover. Oh, okay.
Oh, are you kidding? Standing around.
They were there.
They were there. There you go.
Pointed stuff.
So the 20th of, end of this month, that was a tentative construction date that their contractor provided. But as I get more information, I'll share with you all, and certainly we'll put it out on in the news.
And if they were to get started on that tentative construction date, would it be finished by the tour?
They so the project schedule it's they indicated 2 to 3 weeks. At the maximum. So it's very, they could do it in a week if weather permits, but I think we want to be conservative in case anything happens. They have a little bit more time. But yeah, should be completed within a month of them starting the construction.
Okay.
Pickleball court construction. If you've been around the rec center, you can see it's a huge construction site. It's looking really well. They're doing good progress, and we're really happy with what they've done so far. We, as you all know, we are realigning the positioning of the existing basketball courts. We're keeping 2, which we had before, and adding 2 pickleball courts towards 27. So we're really excited about that project being completed soon. Also, another project underway that we're really excited about is the boardwalk, a 6-foot boardwalk all along the intercoastal side of the marina. There's a lot of work happening there. They should be completed by March 31st. We haven't had any issues. I know the rain last couple of weeks has been a little bit of a problem to keep momentum going, but they're back and they're working and making good progress. And on the permit, y'all know back in December, we submitted the modification to the existing permit that will allow us to do the planned project for the public dock. I know that Kirby Marshall from ATM, you've seen him before. He's been contacting us with questions, so the permitting agencies have been engaging in a lot of conversation about it, which is a good sign. We're hopeful that we can get that in place and be ready for construction next winter season. All right, next project. One that was completed that I'm incredibly excited about. It's my new favorite beach access path, 34A. This is a project that we constructed in coordination with the Greenbelt program with Charleston County. It includes 2 handicap parking spots and just a beautiful handicap accessible compliant boardwalk. We're already working on where else we were going to put these, so Rusty, you don't have to ask me that.
It looks great, I gotta say.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Good. And then next project that we completed, 99% complete, is the garbage compactor improvements at Front Beach. You can see just how much better it looks now. The final piece will be installing a camera to allow us to monitor the use, and also installing a odor control system along the perimeter.
Jimmy.
Question, was there any follow-up to my question last month about getting local high school, college art students to maybe paint murals?
We have not, but I think, once we all see it, we saw that would be just a great location for that, but.
Yeah, I just wanted to get that on record. If we can just keep that in mind.
Yes.
Thank you.
I would suggest having the Chamber of Commerce maybe coordinate that for us. I think the businesses would probably love to have an input.
Yeah, we've already asked the chamber to kind of take up the project of the mural along the Public Works workshop as you're coming down the connector. So we can certainly ask if they have, if they're interested in tackling this. I think that would be a great partnership.
That was going to be my question. How's the
In progress.
Public Works building
In
coming
progress,
along?
Councilmember Pops.
Great.
What else, Desiree?
That's all I have.
Thank you. Next item is legislative report of funding requests. Desiree, you want a quick update? And real quick, our lobbyists are scheduled to attend our March city council meeting. Some have met, some haven't. We've gotten reports from them, but thought it'd be nice to get them in front of all of us. Sorry.
So yeah, so as you all know, last year with our newly sort of added lobbyists to the team, we secured a grant of $1.5 million future dredging at the marina. We have been working with them in the past several weeks on new projects for funding. The 2 that we've already submitted, I think I shared with you all several weeks ago. One is $2.5 million for additional boardwalks. We have an example of what we just completed. They cost roughly $250,000. We feel like with $2 million, it could help us add more in areas where we don't have those improvements made. That's a request that we have made. An additional request that we made through them was a $7 million grant for 3 different drainage projects. And these 3 drainage projects were those that were identified as priorities by the comprehensive master plan. I shared a brief description of what those are, tide valves and flapper valves and some of our outfalls. Also a project at 38th and Palm. Y'all know that that's an area that holds a lot of water, and sometimes we have to block the road. And then another project down at Palm Boulevard and Merritt Boulevard on this end of the island. So we're working on providing information for those. Hopefully we can get additional funding. There are two additional things that have come up in recent conversations with our lobbyists that we plan to prepare and submit to them. One is funding for undergrounding utility lines. You all know we're taking advantage of the Dominion Energy program where it's a cost share. These projects are incredibly expensive, and we feel if we got a sizable grant to tackle some of the areas that we've identified as wanting to underground those power lines, that would be a good source of, it's a good source of, it's a good project, it's a good resiliency effort that I think we should pursue. So that's something that we have not yet prepared, but will, and pursue it through our lobbyists. And the other suggestion was made to request for funding for Front Beach improvements, whether it's in the, particularly around the municipal parking lot. Enhancing our existing public lots, some aesthetics and beautification of that area. So once we prepare those, we'll share them with you all, and we'll update progress on those.
Thank you. Good. Yeah, sorry, Jimmy.
Sounds like the lobbyists are working hard. Wouldn't our initial investment like $50,000 with this?
Yeah.
Pretty good return.
Yeah, 50,000 annually.
8 million.
Next item is discussion on legislation to be introduced for the use of the 30% state accommodations fund. Just real quick background. There's one of the items we had talked about last year, I guess, was approaching our legislators to see if we could get some traction on reducing the 30% bucket, capping the 30% bucket or something. This pending legislation from Representative Bustos, what we initially thought was going to be good news is really not for us necessarily. It's adding an additional use of the funds for the 65% bucket. So that doesn't really help us for what we're looking to do. So John, I know you had a conversation with our lobbyists this past week on how we could maybe attack this 30% number. Do you want to give a quick
Well,
recap?
and I encourage us to act fast on it because they're in session and the budget's process starting, but they recommended that we could potentially get a one-time, they call it proviso to the budget, where we could take some portion of our 30% money and dedicate it to a project. So they'd go forward to get a proviso in the budget for us to use 30% money for that. So if we have something that's in the, and I encourage either it was to address it as council to get ideas or have staff come up with some ideas and just submit it to them and say, hey, here's a project we would like to use our 30% money for in the next budget cycle, and see if they can't get that through.
No, that was a good suggestion on their part, because it's going to be years' worth of effort on the 30%, whether that's a capped dollar amount or allow for different uses, but if we could do a one-time, so.
I'd like to know what percentage of that 30% now that you thought would be better used if we could divert it to another project, and what that dollar amount is, so we don't give you off-the-wall two big projects or two small projects.
Well, I mean, is the intent to use the entire 30% and allocate it? Because just as a reminder, the PR and tourism coordinator position is cost share.
No,
with the CBP
their
with that amount.
recommendation is something reasonable, maybe 400,000 of our 1 point, I think we're anticipated probably to be in close to 1.2 next year, and say, a third of it or something like that.
A third of it, okay. That's
So
what I was
something fairly small from a project standpoint, based on what things cost these days, but beach access path or something, I'd just look to staff to come back with some recommendations for us to think through. Is that all right? No other business?
Rusty, it's your turn.
Is it? Okay,
Do it.
motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Off record at 6:49. Thank you.